Okay, now these final sections aren't covered by the project planning work, so we'll approach them a little differently here. First is the schedule section. This is listed on your assignment prompt as the work plan and schedule. The first thing to point out about this section that sometimes confuses people is that this is intended to show your instructor, who is the audience for this, that you have planned out how you are going to complete the report document itself, which is the purpose of the proposal, to convince your instructor that you are ready and able to complete the report project. And it is not any kind of schedule about implementing whatever alternative in the report that you might suggest in the report to the client. Try to always think in terms of the rhetorical situation of the proposal when in doubt, and remember that the audience of the proposal is your instructor, and your purpose is to convince your instructor that you have created a good project plan and are ready to move forward with your project. If something will not serve that end, you might want to ask your instructor about it to be sure you are interpreting the assignment requirements correctly. Now with the schedule, the chart here is what is known as a Gantt chart, or a chart used to plot out a project work schedule's overlapping activities over an extended period of time. You'll be learning how to make one of these simpler charts using the table features in Word in an upcoming lesson. So let's look at some of the other elements in this section you should think about when you create and draft your own proposal. Similar to what you would do if you were introducing a second level heading or subsection within the schedule section, this writer has utilized the textual introduction to provide a textual context for the Gantt chart. Following graph is used to plan the work needed to complete my analytical report. Similar to what you would do if you were introducing a second level heading or subsection within the schedule section, the writer here has utilized a textual introduction to provide a textual context for the Gantt chart, and also has included a commentary that follows the chart, which helps us to interpret and understand the chart, and would do the same thing for any visual for that matter, if placed at the end of the visual or following the visual in order to place it in context with the rest of the report material. Similarly, the next section, the budget, aka resources required to complete the project, which is also about the cost of printing and professionally binding the report and not the cost of implementing anything you might recommend your client to do in the report, should be prefaced and followed by text unless there is a compelling reason not to provide such context for the audience here. The big trouble that people get into with each one of these sections usually revolves around how well they integrate the visuals and text together. Other than that, however, in the Gantt chart, try to remember that the purpose of a Gantt chart is to help show a more realistic work plan where the start and complete dates for tasks overlap, and do not proceed in a nice and tidy linear progression where one step completely ends and then you begin the next step. Work on it until you are completely finished with it, and then move on to the next, and so on. If your chart looks like a checkerboard staircase without any overlapping steps, you might want to go back and rethink how things might really happen. The big issues with the budget, on the other hand, tend to be that people do not always include an itemized list. The big issues with the budget, on the other hand, tend to be that people do not always include an itemized list of costs, such as paper, plastic cover sheet, cardstock back cover, binding cost, etc., nor do they always include a total. You need both in this chart, and it is also good to utilize shading and color to emphasize or draw attention or contrast to both the heading block of the visual and the total block of your budget chart.